Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm here today with my friend.
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. Today is an interesting day. I started the day out listening to Bashar. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but sometimes in the morning, I just want something uplifting to listen to, and I landed on him. So that's where it came, where I listened to. So there were some themes that were mirrored back to me in this video. And this is one of the themes we're going to talk about today, that each of us is literally our own reality. So in this episode, he talks about that. Each of us is our own universe, our own reality, and only we see the world this way. And so what we decide to see, what we want to see, what we look for, we see. The second point was about neutrality, which is one of my favorites. It's this feeling in the body of you're really non-attached. You're not indifferent in any way. You really are like, oh, okay, that's fine. That can happen over there on the planet. Doesn't have anything to do with me. You're physically, in a way, disconnected from needing to move forward or backward on something. You're just okay with it. From this place, it's a gateway to everything else, all the higher levels. Acceptance and love and forgiveness and bliss and joy and enlightenment. But unless you can get through that gate into neutrality, you can't experience anything. The third thing is one of those that's very, very dear to my heart. And it's something I'm telling our practitioners all the time, and anybody who does Cogno Movement. You have to become a different person to see a different reality. So with Cogno Movement, after a Cogno Movement session, you're a different person because your physiological body is different. Your mind is different. The way the mind and body talks to itself are different. So you're now a new person. And he was pointing out that literally the things that happened to you in the past have nothing to do with you today because you're a different person than you were then. So all of these ideas were really exciting to me this morning, and I thought it would be fun to talk with you about them, Bill McKenna.
Well, it's certainly very interesting. It on the science end of things, it takes me back to those quantum experiments at the University of Vienna, also MIT, where they had two independent observers, basically camera systems that were recording a double split photon experience where, you record what's going on with a photon when it's shot through a slit or two slits. And the independent observers, two independent camera systems, recorded two independent, disparate outcomes. And it was the evidence that we live in a universe that is subjective, meaning it's all about whatever I think and see, versus a true objective reality. So I found it just kind of like when I heard about this and I looked into it, I was like, oh, my mind could not even grasp that. Wait a second. No. We all agree that there's a red light. We all stop at the red light, that sort of thing. We have agreed upon reality. But there is something going on where I, for example, have seen things like that I've never seen before. As I've gone through different changes in my life, this like buildings appear, that weren't there before. Like I just never saw it, but it's been there forever. Anyway, we all do this, and it changes within the different parts of our life.
Well, I think one of the things that was so useful for me early on when I learned neurolinguistic programming is that exactly this premise, people have their reasons and the map is not the territory. What it means is that each person, what I'm seeing today, what you're seeing today, is accumulation of everything you've seen and heard before. It's how you can relate to what's going on right this minute. So what all of the series of things that has made me up, where I was born, what kind of food I ate, what kind of air I breathed, what kind of house I lived in, who my parents were, what my experiences were, where I traveled on the planet or didn't travel, all of those add up to a very specific set of rules for how my body takes in information. The same for you. And the idea in neurolinguistic programming with people have their reasons is a reminder you absolutely could never actually understand another person's true perspective. Not even your child who you think you've known their whole life, not even your spouse who you may have known, most of your life, because still they're taking in information based on a different set of criteria than you. So by nature of that, it helps you understand that you can't understand what other people are thinking, right? Yeah. So better to be neutral, watch and listen and react cautiously, right? But the other thing is that each of us, by definition, then, are literally our own reality. We have to be. Everything we see is through our own lens. I think if more people understood this, they'd stop pushing back against other people. We hear it all the time. I cannot understand why that person thinks that way. I can't understand why my mom did that. I can't understand how a person could do this or that. And the first part of the sentence is the truth. You can't understand. There's no way to understand it. So, which comes to the second part of neutrality. If you can just be neutral, and this is really hard, but I mean in your physical reaction to the things that normally light you up, in that state of neutrality, you can see a whole lot more about their perspective. You start to see them as a human having an experience just like you. Like if it's our parents, we usually see them from a certain perspective. It's our husband, it's a certain perspective. But when you're able to be in neutrality and see them as a human, and they're just trying to do their thing as much as you, that really reshapes the whole idea. Have you ever had that experience?
That really does. And the first time I started to get that was after I started to understand the near-death experience. So the near-death experience is, when you die, end up going to the light, and then you have an experience where you relive your life not only as yourself, but you relive it as the other characters, your mom, your dad. You are the other people going through the experience, but you're them. You feel them. You feel what it's like, to be in their body, their thoughts, everything. And through that experience, there's one really cool thing that happens. If people go far enough and have the experience, what they say is that it's not what I thought. It's not what I thought. All those things that I made assumptions on, no. And you can just imagine your life today with all the assumptions you made. That person is really a pop. They really meant to beep, bop, bop. They are so they don't think of me in the pop, pop, pop. The thing is that it's just not true. It's not true. They come back and they say, you know what? The person that I thought those things about, they were in fear. They were self-absorbed, absorbed. They had some traumas from their past that made them feel a certain way. They felt threatened or whatever be the case. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad thing. They're just absorbed, you know?
Yeah, this is such a really good point. We all tend to think that everyone is always thinking about us.
They're
Right?
not.
And they are not. So we tend to think like our children, if they are misbehaving, they're doing something against us, right? Or if our spouse does something that we don't like, we think they've done something against us. You know, it's these close family members and friends, right? That we have this idea about. If we realize that people have their reasons and it's all about themselves, you start to separate out that feeling of I'm being attacked. We experience everything through our nervous system. Everything's coming at us. And then our past experiences simply react. They all just react. And we have a feeling and it tells the brain how to interpret that feeling. Well, most of the time our interpretation is they're an a-hole, right? Like they are trying to ruin our lives. They're trying to hurt us. They're trying to be mean. They're trying to make a statement. But really 9 times out of 10, probably 9.999 times out of 10, a person is just doing what they need to do to get through the day or to survive, or it all made sense to them from their perspective in the moment, right? And so when you're able to be in that state of neutrality, and what I mean is a physical state, a thing happens and your body doesn't react. You just are neutral and you're able to see. It's like being in the matrix. So you can see 360 degrees. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not reacting. I'm remembering that that's another human and they're in a human body that looks like my spouse. And that spouse is probably doing something that in the moment benefited them. I wonder what that would have been. Oh, this doesn't have anything to do with me, right?
It doesn't have it, yeah.
But it might have affected me. So in that moment, now I have the opportunity to say, you know, darling spouse, that didn't, that thing that you didn't affect me in the way that felt good to me. I'm wondering if we could reconfigure that the next time, right? They don't understand that it affected you badly because they're not thinking about you. You want them to be thinking about you all the time. They're just not. They're just not. And so, you know, you have to remember that for yourself too, that you're not always thinking about the other person, though we often try, right? We still don't know how they're going to react to whatever we did. It may mean something completely different. So that being in that place called neutrality, where you're just not physically reacting, slows everything down, really does open the gateways to having a completely different experience other than a fight or feelings hurt or anger or sadness or all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I love the saying, comparison is the off-ramp on the freeway of happiness.
Yeah.
It's so we do this all day long. And by comparison, you know, what I mean is like, you know, you have an emotion along with it. You know, I'm not talking about discernment. You know, I see that color is, you know, red on that car, and that color over there on that car is green. You know, that's just our discernment. We're not talking about losing that. We're talking about losing the reactions. And these reactions are really a prison. They call them reactions for a reason. You didn't choose to feel that way. There's no choice. I just do feel that way. Now, the beautiful thing about that is that there's technology today that it doesn't have to be that way. It's just, you can program this out of your nervous system. You can take control of your nervous system, because that's what it is. Your nervous system produces these feelings. along with a bunch of chemicals and that sort of thing. But the primary there is your nervous system. It lights up and then those chemicals get released.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that right after our next break. And we'll talk about how that shift in your nervous system actually makes you a different human. So let's hear from our good sponsors, and we will be right back. So we're talking about how you can actually get to a place of neutrality, how your perspective really makes you your own universe, and how to make change, you actually really become a different person. So you ended, Bill, talking about how there's a reaction in the nervous system that creates electricity, like electrical signals, it creates hormones, and it creates chemicals. And all of those add up to how we respond to any particular stimulus. You know, it could be somebody cutting us off. It could be that our hair doesn't look good that day, our underwear doesn't fit right. Somebody gave us a dirty look, our food wasn't great, right? The opportunities for negative reaction are probably 29 billion a day. And at the same time, the opportunities for positive reaction are at least equal, if not more. It really depends on which one our nervous system is dialed to. So a person who perceives themselves to have had a lot of trauma in their life, their nervous system might be dialed to anger. Anger is their first response, right? Or shame is their first response, or even courage might be their first response, right? So your system is dialed to have a certain set of neurochemical responses to an input. What we've been saying all these years in Cognomovement is that dial can be shifted to where your system automatically starts looking for the positive input. Oh, it's looking for somebody to smile at me. Well, you're going to see about 10,000 people smile at you in a day if you're looking for it, right? Your system actually feels those smiles before they ever come. If your nervous system is dialed to, let's say, love, which is a high vibration for that day, you are going to encounter things that are quite lovable. So this neurochemical reactive state creates action in our lives, and that actually creates the reality we think we know. One change in that neurochemical reactive state, one change where your body no longer exists on that prior pattern, literally changes who you are. Because now you're reacting differently. Think about an alcoholic who reacts with alcohol and how they behave with that reaction, and then someone who doesn't drink alcohol and doesn't have that same reaction. Those feel like two very different people. It's really the same principle.
Absolutely. And the thing is that it's really kind of a lifelong trap unless we have some sort of skills to get out.
Yeah.
And by trap, I mean, like, you know, I love to use all the people in my life, you know, as examples, you know, of this. I got 12 brothers and sisters, 12 of them. They've all been the same since birth. All of them. All of them. And whatever their thing is, you know, their struggles or their nature, it just keeps coming out. We're all from the same mom and dad, all grow up in the same house, all had the same things, but some of them are perpetually in a state of joy and creation and support of others. Some of them are incredibly creative and loving. Others of them are in a state of constant not enough, seeing themselves victimized. The pattern of like, I want you to crawl over broken glass to show me you love me. And I'm going to, by the way, I've got some glass. I'm going to lay it down here. I'm going to lay down a path for you to walk over to get to me. And I'm going to set up a scenario for you. And we're going to be testing. We're going to have your test today. I like to call them pop quizzes. So pop quiz. But it's so interesting because these are really a neurological pattern, just as much as the neurological pattern of joy, creativity, love, support, and the neurological pattern of I'm going to set up the broken glass path for you to crawl on to prove your love. These are all the same. It's all the same. It's just, is it resourceful or is it not resourceful?
Bill, do you think it's people are trying to justify their position? Like, do you think a lot of this, what you're talking about, is a person saying, well, obviously I'm right because look at all these things that happened to me. Well, look at you. You showed up today and you didn't walk across my glass the way I wanted you to. So it proves I'm right. You're a jerk, right? Like,
yeah,
it seems like to me that is the biggest thing we humans do. The biggest mistake we made is in justifying our position. The deeper we dig into that position, the farther we get away from the actual ability to change it.
That is so true. I love the way you put that. Every argument, that spouses have, underlying it, I'm right.
Right?
I'm right. I'm right. That's it. I don't want to, you know what? I am right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I've told on myself about this before, but I've been married for 30 years. And we've always had a great relationship. We're, for some reason, strangely attracted to each other. But in the past, there was this pattern where I would get annoyed because, of course, I thought he should be constantly thinking about me and my needs, right? Isn't that his job? After all, that's what all the princess stories say. And clearly, I'm a princess who deserves somebody to be thinking about me constantly, right? So he's really, really great in that way of doing nice things. And he's good around the house, stuff like that. But he's still a person, a guy who has other things on his mind. So something would happen that I would perceive as a slight, and I'd be mad. And, I would be mad for 3 days, right? Giving the cold shoulder a little bit, not responding to texts, just being a little standoffish, right? And then one day we were doing our work and really trying to gain the understanding that every time it's us, every moment of every day, it's always us, right? That is the problem. And that's wonderful because it's the only way we can create change. When I realized, like, got to that neutrality place where I don't react, and I have the minute to look at somebody that I really love, I really respect, I really revere, and thought, why am I even being mad for 5 minutes? This is dumb. Like, this takes away from the time that we could be telling stupid jokes or, laughing at somebody on TV. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we spend our days. We laugh all the time. Well, I realized that my nervous system had created a set of rules where he needed to be punished for his infraction and understand that that was not proper princess treatment. The truth is, he never got it. He never understood that. All he understood is, all right, well, here she goes again. She's gonna be mad for 3 days, and at the end of 3 days, we'll be friends again, right? So when I realized this neutrality piece and realized that I could look at him differently and realize who knows what he did in that moment. So I'll ask, hey, my love, was it your intention to, do whatever the thing was and offend me? Was it your intention to leave all kinds of crap on my entry room table to make a mess, to irritate me? Let it be like, of course not, my love. I forget that you don't like it there. I'll move it. Okay. And we're friends again, right? He's refriended on my Facebook. 5 minutes, right? Instead of 3 days. It makes all the difference. But it starts with that ability to just see him as another human. He's just going about his day, doing his own thing, not constantly thinking about me. And it makes for a much more fun life. But there's other areas, of course, we all forget that we have the ability to change things instantly like that, reframe them, re-understand it through a new neurological perspective, right? Physiological perspective. And this is this point about you become a new human. When you change such a fundamental reaction to like what your spouse does in your life, and you're able to see that neutrality and then make adjustments very quickly, that's a different human than before. That's a different neurological, physiological person reacting differently. Imagine yourself, everyone out there listening, what if you could change 3 of those really big automatic reactions? What if you could change 5? How different of a human would you actually be? How different are your reactions now and then your actions? It would be like having a brand new life. It is like having a brand new life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Liz was talking about how she got there. And, obviously there's a bunch of people out there all over the globe listening to this, and maybe a little explanation of how you were able to actually realize this, utilizing the Cognomovement tool. What tell us about what happened there?
Well, it's actually really very simple. It seems so hard when you're first starting out, like, how do I not feel that way? And it's this one basic principle that we know in Cognomovement that supports everything we do. Your reaction starts with a physical sensation, a feeling. That's how your body turns on your fight or flight. You need to have a physical reaction so that your mind knows, hey, emergency going on here. Let's pull the fire alarms, right? So that physical reaction sends a signal to the brain. Well, if I know that it's that physical reaction, let's say it's anger mixed with hurt feelings when my spouse isn't thinking about me every minute of every day and doesn't act accordingly to the princess rules, right? It's, for me, it would be like a feeling in my gut, kind of a sour feeling with tension. Well, it's that specific feeling, that reaction in my body that I have to change. So with Cognomovement, we go directly at that physical sensation and essentially program it out of the body. But more than that, we neutralize it. We show the body its own reaction. And as the body is shown that reaction, it gets to decide, is that good for us or bad for us? Is it really an emergency or is it a drain of our energy? And the wave in the body collapses, that chemical response, the electrical response that we were talking about, it goes to neutral, goes flat. So when my body doesn't automatically react with anger and hurt, to this slight to my princesshood, I have the ability to now think completely different because my mind is not being sent the signal of panic, of fear, of fight or flight. So it's always the same in Cognomovement. We are changing out a physical reaction for something far more resourceful. And that's it. That's how we get there. Now, to get to that place where you can see your spouse so clearly, a lot of times you have to clear out some of the basement of those lower energies. some of the shame, some of the blame, guilt, grief, anger, fear, some of those, which also can happen very, very quickly. But changing even one of those changes the way everything else reacts. It's all a stack built on each other. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. It's really just being able to recognize yourself in the moment and doing the work to change that physiological pattern, which could take 5 minutes or it could take an hour.
These are certain neurological exercises that you're doing while you are recognizing it. So there are certain things that you do with your eyes, certain things you're doing with your ears, certain things you're doing with motion, all of these, which will show you where this particular situation is.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Cognomovement has broken the code for how to change your nervous system very, very quickly. So let's take our next break. And when we come back on the subject of changing your nervous system very, very quickly, we will talk a little bit about a brand new free class that actually can help people change extremely rapidly into a state of love. It's not a permanent change, but it's one of those that really can get your system starting to move in that direction, and it can change the reality in the moment. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's called the love direction. Let's hear from our sponsors and we'll be right. Okay, we're back, and we're literally talking about how to change your reality here. And there is a thing about the way the brain takes in information, and that is really through predominantly your vision, but it also takes in information through your ears, through your physical sensation, and through every neurological input around the body. But the eyes are the way that you can actually see the files of the brain. So we know that we can create a direction that will instantly create love in your body, that actual feeling of unconditional love. We know that there are places that will induce anger immediately. We also know that there are places in that vision that hold memories. We know that there's a place in your vision where when you win or you have a great idea, you access it immediately. We all do on purpose. That's eyes up, hands up, right? We also know that there are places that create an almost superhuman zone state. But this class that we created is about getting right into that love position, which is a vibration of about 500, which is very high, and is said to have the potential of changing the planet, that particular vibration. So if we can get there quickly, that has some real value, right?
It has tremendous value. And I've heard different people after the discovery of this love direction and the introduction of it to some people, they described it. Their experience was a connection to infinite energy. And I was like, isn't that funny? And other people described it that basically everything went into synchronicity, meaning they felt like everything started happening for them nearly instantly. And it occurred to me, everybody, every religion around the world, they all say the same thing, and they call it different things. They call it God. They call it the divine. They call it Brahma. They call it all kinds of different things. But this source or universal energy, they all describe it as love. God is love. And so it makes absolutely perfect logical sense to me that if there's a way, a physical position a physical position you could put your eyes in that would induce this, of course it's going to be closer to infinite energy. Of course it's going to be, the synchronicities are going to be just flowing. Of course you're going to be more connected. All of these things, of course you're going to be closer to your own true nature.
You know, this just made me think, Bill, as you're talking about this, the importance of pointing out that we think our emotions, we think the way we feel is real, right? We think that it's the most important thing. And it's true, it holds reality in a certain place. But what you're talking about, being able to change the way you feel so dramatically that you see things through the lens of love, it changes what is the truth in your reality right now. And I just wanted to point out that that is an electromagnetic hormonal signal. It's an eye position. So I want people to think about what's true, not true, what's real or not real in your life, right?
Yeah.
If you think a bad situation is so permanent, and you can literally change it through an eye position, which I want you to tell a couple of stories about people who've done that. What is reality? It really should make you consider what is reality. So you were telling me about somebody who went to the doctor and changed reality.
This is okay. I'm going to tell you.
Oh, and the flights too.
There's so many stories. I mean, and these are all just in the past few days. You know, one story is there was somebody that learned this, and they were they were at the airport, you know, and it comes across the, you know, lounge, and the flight is delayed to New York by 2 hours. And then the person was like, oh, no, and not having this. They put got into their love direction, and they just they felt it, and they were like, oh, I'm going to arrive early. And next thing you know, he said, about a minute or 2 minutes later, they were like, yes, and we're departing on time. And then it's like, you know, kind of let go of that love direction. You know, okay, they're boarding. Hey, you know, just to, you know, we're going to be on the tarmac for a 20-minute delay. So, but we're going to board the plane anyway. Okay. And she said, nope, not having that. Goes back to the love direction again. By the time they get seated on the plane, it's like, and this is your pilot. We're pulling back, and we are in line. We're you know, fourth on the lineup. They ended up getting there 20 minutes early. You know, they no waiting on the tarmac, all that. No, you know, and it's like, but the reality, it's like shifts incredibly fast. We know this about dimensions and that's the way it works, but it's so fun to see it and hear these stories one after the next. The next one, literally, this is so funny. The next story, there was a woman who has a not-for-profit, and it's a massive project. You know, we're talking about, you know, millions of dollars to get this project off the ground. And a contractor calls and says, hey, you know, I want to get going on your project. And she goes, well, I got bad news. You know, investor, not investor, but, you know, donator, you know, we got a problem. I don't got the money, you know. And he's like, and I'm not sure what's going to happen here, you know. And he was like, oh, no. It's going to happen. I'm going to build it. And whenever you get the money, I know you're going to get it, you know, and I'm just going to build it, and you can pay me whenever. I mean, crazy. Who does that? Who invests their time and their money on their own? Who does that?
I mean, the point of it is, though, that reality shifts. So this love direction that we're talking about, this class, it's free. We're going to give you the directions to get there. But this love direction changes the neural pathways in a human's body so quickly and so powerfully that the only thing that can happen is reality bends to that feeling, that particular feeling. And because it's through your perspective, it changes for you. You see it changing, it changes for everybody else. This is a big hang up for a lot of people in this kind of manifesting. Like, what if it affects other people? Don't they all need to change for me to have my way? If you think about the things that had to change for that flight to change, I mean, it's about 1 million micro movements of things that had to change for that to change that dramatically. But it changed for her and she experienced it. Fair enough. End of story. You know, it's how you perceive it, and you are literally shifting the reality around you. It's very, very cool. And that is simply through an eye position. This class that we have for you literally teaches you how to get yourself in this singular eye position that changes the way your neurology and physiology sees the world. It's kind of crazy, right?
It's totally crazy. And it is unique to you. I repeat, unique to you. So the class is a discovery class, a discovery for you to find this within yourself. This is amazing discovery. Never before in the history of mankind did anybody understand this. And it was an accidental discovery. One day, just real quick, I was trying, one of the things we know, Liz and myself, is that every eye position is a different part of the brain. You know, Liz was talking about that. And so I was like, you know, I know the benefits of love, you know, that it makes you way smarter. It makes you like your whole life go well. It makes all these positive things happen. Like, you know, those stories. And so I methodically started going through my entire vision while feeling the love that I could. And there were certain places that were like, wah, 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 wah. It turned off. I could not feel it. Didn't matter what I did. But one of the things that happened, and this is the birth of this, was that there was a position where it caught on fire. And I was like, oh my gosh, this happened, you know, and as typical, I call Liz and, hey, Liz, you know, and Liz tries it and she's like, oh my gosh, that happened too to her, but different from me. Anyway, we've done a lot of research on this and it's there for you. Liz, tell them about the class, where they can get it and how to access this.
Okay. So it is on our website, cognomovement.com/Gaia, Gaia, and the word love, Gaia love. Or you can just go to cognomovement.com and there's a banner right on the front page. You can click. You do have to give us your email, but then you get this entire class for free. And it is changing people's lives. It's a really great introduction to how through your own neurology, you can begin to change reality. And it introduces you to the whole group of tools that Cogno Movement has that can change your life permanently, completely, and utterly. So please go to the class, cognomovement.com/Gaia love directly, or go right to cognomovement.com. You can also see more about this on the streaming service Gaia. There is a brand new interview with Bill, and I guest star on it for a few minutes about this exact topic. So that's a great place to find more information. All right, you guys, we've come to the end of this episode for now. Try this on. Please let us know how it works for you. And until next week, be safe and be well.